I'll just kick it off with Joe Rogan. So they tried to get him over the past couple of weeks for, quote, COVID misinformation. He put on Dr. Robert Malone and others, and some didn't feel he questioned them aggressively enough about their anti-vaccine opinions. He came out and said, okay, I'll try to do better. I'll put on more diverse voices and I'll press harder. Then they switched the narrative to he's a racist. And we saw the same tapes that they're circulating about him now right after he endorsed Bernie. It was very clear the Biden people put out the tapes saying, this guy, don't listen to Joe Rogan. He may like Bernie, but he's a racist. And indeed, the tapes show him using the N-word at least a dozen times over the past several years. I think it's in the past decade. And telling a story about going to see the movie Planet of the Apes in a predominantly black neighborhood, and Joe Rogan saying, it felt like I was on Planet of the Apes when I went to watch the movie. And he apologized for that too, saying, I realize that sounds incredibly racist. Even to me, it's horrible. I'm sorry. And I wonder, because you're always fair on these issues. Those are tough comments. But what is the big picture in your view about what's happening right now with Joe Rogan?
Well, I'm not really familiar with this show. I don't listen to it, Megyn, but it does seem to fit. This instance does seem to fit a pattern of what we've seen through this whole cancel culture phenomenon, where someone says something controversial or something you don't like, and the idea is not to debate that person, but to silence them or to shun them in some way, and as a journalist like you, I don't like to see that. I think, I take free speech and freedom of expression and that sort of thing very seriously. And I think if someone says something controversial, you push back by pointing out where they're wrong, and then you move on. And that's what we do in this society. But this idea that we're going to police speech, something that doesn't sit well with me as a journalist, and I'm sure it doesn't sit well with a lot of Americans who can decide for themselves. If people don't like what Joe Rogan is saying, they'll stop listening to him. I mean, that's sort of the way it works here.
Mm-hmm. And yet, that's not the way they want it to work. They want him gone. They want him deplatformed entirely. And you've got people like India Arie coming out and saying, I don't care about the COVID stuff. I care about the race stuff. And I don't want my music on a platform with a guy who makes comments like that. What do you make of it, right? Because it's like, I understand, even in the past 10 years, people knew not to use the N-word. It's not like that was a new revelation. And yet that word is all over Spotify's music. Like if you listen to Spotify for 2 minutes.
It's very, obviously, it's a very selective outrage. I mean, that's been clear for a long time. But it's also selective in the sense that the left rarely wants to call out their own when they get in this sort of trouble with their misuse of. I mean, the civil rights leaders, anti-Semitic remarks made over the years, racist remarks made by blacks and others on the left. They seem to get a pass. We don't linger over that. We move on. So yes, but it is very much selective outrage. This idea that black people melt when they hear that word it's a lot of play acting. I mean, Dave Chappelle can't string together 2 sentences without using this word. We're the most popular entertainers in the country. So I do see a lot of performance art going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking of somebody like Chelsea Handler, who was praising Louis Farrakhan, who has made the most disgusting remarks possible about Jews. Didn't hurt her career. No one cares. Fine. She can be cast in. No one's saying she should never act in another movie again. Different story. And so, yeah, you could do this to a lot of very popular, especially somebody like Joe Rogan, who's just been, it's not like he's been anchoring the CBS Evening News. He's been out there having like these no holds barred conversations for all his time, and his show exploded. And I just don't think he ever put guardrails on himself. And now he's realizing with a bigger platform, he may have to. That's part of the deal with all the power he has and the partnership with Spotify. I would like to call your attention, though, as a journalist, and you're with the Wall Street Journal. But here is, listen to this, Margaret Sullivan. She's a columnist at the Washington Post for our audience. She comes out with this, Jason. She says, I'm disgusted by Joe Rogan's weak apology on the COVID stuff. My former colleague's death at age 47 makes it worse. My friend was 47. He was overweight and asthmatic, very much at risk, and he was unvaccinated. And she's blaming Joe Rogan. But then she adds this. I don't know for sure whether getting vaccination and booster shots would have saved his life. And I have no idea whether he'd ever listened to Joe Rogan's podcast or for what reason he chose not to be vaccinated. But let me get back to the point. It's Joe Rogan's fault, and Spotify's too. I mean, this is the lunacy on the left, Jason.
It is lunacy. And again, it's sort of this condescension, this condescending view of the American public and their supposed inability to separate the sort of wheat from the chaff and this sort of thing. I mean, there's all kinds of information coming at everyday people all the time. They decide who to take seriously. They decide who to go to for medical advice. And the idea that a comedian can't be out there doing his thing, or someone just, talking off the top of their head, that people are sitting at home and as if this is a biblical script that they're hearing and are going to go immediately act on it. It's nonsense. Mm. And again, I think it's a very insulting view of the intelligence of the average person in this country, including the average Joe Rogan listener who knows, when he's fooling around and when he's trying to be serious.
Plus, they're getting, on the COVID stuff, they are getting the other narrative by the boatload. Every channel they turn on. So he puts on an alternate voice with an alternate viewpoint. They don't need Joe Rogan to interview, although he did Sanjay Gupta to get Sanjay Gupta's point of view.
Yeah, the idea that you need he needs more balance on his program, where the existence of his program is providing balance. You come up against this all the time. This sort of token balance that the left believes in. I get invited to do panel discussions and things like that all the time, and it'll almost always be 3-on-1, 4-on-1. And because they have one more conservative voice, it's, we have balance now. No, you don't have balance. You have window dressing is what you have. Right. And so, yes, this idea that Joe Rogan's show needs more balance. Oh, my goodness. I mean, one of the few conservative voices out there, and they can't tolerate that.
Mm-hmm. I really do think with him, they do go after their own, the left woke mob. It's not all liberals. It's the leftist woke mob. But they go after their own sometimes. We've seen that in a couple of cases. But somebody like Joe Rogan, who is not woke and is fighting them on that core issue of making identity politics everything, race essentialism and trans ideology and all of it, is a particular threat, especially given that his platform, he's got 11 million viewers or listeners. It dwarfs anything in cable news. Anything. You could combine the average ratings of, all the Fox News evening hosts who dwarf MSNBC and CNN hosts, and they still wouldn't reach Joe Rogan. So he's a bigger threat. So that's what this is about. They want to silence him for those viewpoints, not for any particular offense they claim to be experiencing from his comments on race or his COVID stuff.
There could be something to that. You could be absolutely right about that. But I still think the dominant media in this country is very left of center and mostly left of center. ABC, NBC, CBS, the New York Times, the Washington Post, USA Today, the biggest networks, all of academia, for example, the Hollywood left in terms of the entertainment industry, people are thrown at. They have such a tremendous advantage. The idea that they can't tolerate a Joe Rogan here or there, that he is somehow a threat to their dominant narratives out there, I find pretty pathetic. You're talking about some very insecure people if that's what they really believe.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.